Hello, everybody. My name is Sharon Lee Williams, and I want to welcome you to Outraised Voices. Now, if you've been here before, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming back and showing up. It's all good. If you are new here, thank you. Thank you for joining us in this important conversation. So, today's CEO, our guest CEO today is Sheniquah Daley. Now, Sheniquah is an alumni of the children's child welfare system, or for me it was the foster care system, child welfare system, being in care. Now, from a young age, Sheniquah refused to be defined by her circumstances. I love that. With over a decade of experience running a successful hairstyling business, she has turned her personal journey into a mission to empower others to always remain faithful. Sheniquah has dedicated herself to teaching clients and parents to embrace the uniqueness of their hair. So, she's a parent and a mentor, and we never know. We might have the voice of a child stepping in. So that's what it's like to be a parent, and we're going to talk to the mentor, Sheniquah, right now. So hi, Sheniquah. Thank you for being here. Thank you for saying yes to Outraised Voices. Hoo-hoo. Certainly, we are going to talk about your journey and where you're at on the bridge to your best life.
Hi, Shem. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for this opportunity to come on Outright Voices and to speak and to have my voice heard and to share my experience and to share with other people around the world.
Yeah. So let's go back to where it all began. And also, because I love, like I said, I love what you're saying about the circumstances, that you refuse to be defined by your circumstances. So let's start there. What were the circumstances?
So growing up, I grew up in a very strict Jamaican household. And growing up, it was always a sense of wanting to belong and feeling like I didn't fit in with my family, and I came to Canada when I was 3 years old. So I was born in Jamaica and I came up here, and my household was very strict. So I felt like the pressure was, you have to be a young lady. You have to be this type of lady. You cannot make mistakes. It was very structured. And I felt like growing up, as I went into care, and I watched stuff on TV, and I was always, she was a foster child. And they always said it with such sadness. And it was always it always made me feel like, wow, like I'll hate to be a foster child.
When you grew up, just to get into this, you were raised with a Jamaican family. You're talking about your biological family
Correct.
first?
Yes.
So biological family. Now,
Yes.
How did you end up in care?
When I was in the 6th grade, I started to rebel. I started to want a sense of, I remember asking why a lot as a child, and that was not allowed in the household. And through my try to explore and try to like raise my voice, I was a lot of time told to be quiet. I wasn't allowed to ask questions, just follow the rules. And I began to break the rules, which led to a lot of physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. And through that, I ended up in foster care when I was in grade 8.
So a choice that your parents said, what? It's best that she step away from the home, or?
I had 2 options. It was either I get out the home and I didn't know where I was going to go, or I go back to Jamaica and live with my mother.
Oh, okay. So
Yes.
your
So I was
mother was in
given my
Jamaica. You were living with
my
your
father and my
dad.
stepmother. Yes.
Okay, with your dad and your stepmom. So, and I'm just going to interject here because being raised in a West Indian family is a different thing.
Yes.
When you talk about like all families, it's all different cultures, but the strictness,
Yeah.
the children should be seen and not heard. Do
Yeah.
what I say, and
What happens in the house
if you
stays in the
don't
house.
do it, you're in trouble.
Yes.
So
Who not here
that
must feel. And I
yes,
didn't hear a lot.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it was
damn that
definitely
cat.
yeah, but being a young child, you don't I guess I didn't really understand my rights and like not thinking that wasn't allowed. I didn't know I was allowed to speak up and I didn't know that what was happening at home was not right. And it wasn't directly like aimed at me. It went through my sister and my brother. They were in high school at
Uh-huh.
the time, and that's how Children's Aid got involved through my brother's experiences. And once they started investigating the home and like realized, okay, this home is like not safe. I was given two options from my father. I can either get out and figure it out, or I can go back to Jamaica.
Now,
At
how
that
old are you
time,
again at this time? Oh,
I was 13, so going back to Jamaica was not an option as I haven't been there. We weren't like on no vacations and stuff like that, but it was never like,
you didn't know it. That wasn't
no, I
home
was,
anymore.
yeah. And I was a, a young teenager. I had friends now. I wanted to meet my friends. I was starting to think for myself. I was starting to explore. So the option was I went to foster care. And for me personally, my experience was different because, and I say I'm very blessed and it was a very unique experience. I went to a foster home where I had a friend. She was in that foster home. So me and her became friends at school. She was a new student. Me and her, I was in a committee at school, like you welcome the new students. And me and her kicked it off. We became best friends. Everyone knew you couldn't see Sheniquah without Dina. Like we were like
Wow.
two peas in a pod. So, and then finding out later on, she was in foster care. So,
Uh-huh.
and my foster mother actually became an acquaintance of my father's. And it made my experience, yeah. So I went to a foster home. Yeah, a
You
lot of
say that
conflict.
again. Say that again. She became
An acquaintance of my father's because they were both Jamaican and they had this stern, strict Jamaican. It was kind of like an agreement, like don't make my child like go off the rails. And it's kind of like I'll keep. It's kind of like I seen her like an aunt. She was like more like an aunt to me. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is just my foster mom. I had a relationship with her,
so she
and I had
was
a
an
relationship
acquaintance of your father before, or this what you didn't know
as
that?
as I went to foster care. I remember the first time we went to the house because I was all in the same community, and
Uh-huh.
I
Oh,
went
okay.
to the home. And we went, I was in the car and she went to the home. Like I should have get some papers from my dad. I don't remember. I was so young. I remember sitting in the car and they were talking and laughing as if they knew each other. And I thought it was very strange. And I'm like,
Mm.
so it's kind of like, I felt like kind of, yeah, I realized, yeah, I guess I didn't really feel safe at that point. It was like, I'm trying to get away from this person. And now here
But
you
this
are
person is
smiling with this smiley.
yeah, this person is connected to what you're trying to
Yeah.
who you're trying to get away from. So did you
Yeah.
stay in that home?
I did stay in that home about for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
It was an experience. I did stay in the home because my friend
Okay.
was there. So I guess it was a sense
Yes.
of like I knew somebody. It was a sense of comfort. Her also being Jamaican as well. It was like
Yes.
a familiar figure. It was like I
Yes.
didn't have to I wasn't going to a new culture. I wasn't going it was like I was staying with an aunt. It really felt like that. She was making the same food. She was a great cook.
Yes. Yes. Well,
But that really, it
that
was comforting. It was comforting.
and I know Children's Aid certainly wants, I mean, everybody wants the children who are in foster care to be able to get back to their home, their
For
culture,
sure.
if it is safe. I mean, that's really the goal if it is attainable. So having the same food, having the same, whatever dialect, slang,
Yeah.
we understand one another.
Mhm.
But the other part of it, so that was the great part. That was
Correct.
cool. You have your friend who
Yes.
you can share like a sister, like this is going on, I don't like this, da, 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 and you have that. That that's
It was,
really important.
it was a very unique experience. A lot of
Yes,
foster children I met never had that. My foster
yes.
sister, she was Greek, and it was, I've seen how different my relationship with her was compared to their relationship. And I'm like, wow, like I definitely seen a sense of like,
Your
I see,
foster sister was Greek in the same house, you mean?
yes, she was Greek. Yes, in the same home.
So this lady you're at, this foster home you're at, she had how many foster
Multiple.
kids?
Oh, that was one of the issues. There were so many.
At the
It
same time
started.
or in and out or
It became at the same time. At one point, it was up to four young ladies at one time. So we're all around the same age, and it was a lot.
wow.
And each of us were treated differently.
How
And
so?
so I, I was the favorite. So I had my own experience with her. There were times where it was difficult, and there's times where my experience in care, I took advantage of that because she wasn't my parent. I didn't feel like it was, I'm watching the other girls have their own experiences, like not coming home. Like I was kind of like, I went to care and I kind of told myself, I'm like, I just gotta do what I gotta do. So I was kind of like trying to find myself because I was going into high school. But at the same time, I was like, I gotta, in a sense, I got a safe start. I got to be with someone I was comfortable with. Watching the other girls interact, it was, they had their own situations going on. And one of my foster sisters, she was a lot of times like gossiped about. So like, from my foster mother to the other girls. So we kind of put our
Wow.
own inputs and stuff, but like, and those things, it affected me because like when you grow up and you're thinking like, this is the person, as much as I was the favorite, and because I got my schoolwork done, I joined the extra clubs, I did sports, like, a lot of them were into other stuff and the stuff they were into were not always good. But
Right.
that's what they grew up seeing. I never grew up seeing what they were seeing growing up. So I just kind of stuck to what I knew. Um,
So
yeah.
so you having four teenage girls
Yes,
is a lot.
it's a lot.
It's a lot. Even if you're in a house with your four biological sisters at the same age, I mean, that's a lot. And somebody goes off in a different direction, and somebody knowing that you're the favorite, then there's also that whole, even though you're not saying that to yourself, I'm not good enough, but there's a reaction to all of that, and some how you're saying is that you didn't see that growing up. So in kind of like growing up with your dad not allowing you to do a lot of things,
Yeah,
you were in some way protected.
correct.
Not
Correct.
the way you wanted to be, but certainly you
Exactly.
were
And from other
protected in
things,
some
yes.
ways.
Yes,
Yes,
for sure.
right.
And even now growing up, like people get to different things and I'm like, I never seen that growing up. So you have a different perspective on life. If I do this, this is my outcome. If I do this,
Right.
this is where I'm going to end up. I kind of stayed away because I'm
Right.
like, I don't want to end up there. Stay away from there.
Right.
So
So
yeah.
when you got to school, now you're in high school, do you say to other children, or do they know, or other youth, I'm a foster child? Or do you tell your story? Does anybody ask? Does anybody care? Do you not want to share all of that? Do you talk about
When,
it with?
yeah, when I got to high school, a lot of time my foster mother, she was a brown skinned woman. So everyone assumed she was my mom. So I used to correct them and say, she's my aunt. And my close friends, they knew I was in foster care. Um, and I never wanted anyone to associate me with the title. She's a foster child because
Yeah, say more about that.
my previous experience, like either from watching TV, as soon as they have this title, she's a foster child. Oh, she's a runaway. She's a problem. She's trouble.
Yes,
I didn't want
yes,
those stereotypes. I didn't want people to think, I was estranged from my family because I was a bad kid. So they put her in a foster home or certain things. So I didn't want the stereotypes on me. So I definitely stayed away from telling a lot of people. Um, when it came to, I went to a Catholic high school. I'm not Catholic, but I love the school. It's a great school. Um,
That's
and
uniforms.
it was uniform. Oh yes, I loved it. And
Hmm. I
it
love
was
that too.
so it was a great. I had a great high school experience, but when my foster sister was also in the school, it was people knew she was in foster care, right? And it was always, oh yeah, she's in foster care, and I'm trying to like, the
How did they
gossiping. So
know? Who?
because from middle school, when I went to foster care, the end of this grade 8,
Oh,
so
okay.
not a lot of people knew I was there. But when she came into middle school and she came into grade 8 that year, everyone knew she's a foster child. It kind of went
Hmm.
around, everyone knew she's a foster child. So again, to high school now, it just kept going. Oh, she's a foster child. She's a foster child, and
Yes.
like, so I kind of, and she had her own group of. We went our separate paths, like summer of middle school. So we were in like we
Hmm.
still talk, but separate paths. We had our own friends. We were into different things. She
Hmm.
was more artsy, and I remember like people just talking. She's in foster care. It's always these stereotypes. So I did try my best to stay away from those. I didn't hang out with certain people. My
Yeah.
teachers knew, but it was I talked to child youth workers. They knew, but for the most part, I didn't go tell nobody. I just kept it to
Yeah.
myself, and yeah,
Well, a lot of people talk. I mean, I know I was in a couple of foster homes during my time, and the second one was in the end of grade 8 for me, and everybody knew because I was living with this family. Everybody knew it. When you come into grade 8, you're in another school, another district.
yeah,
You're a foster child, even though I was with a black family. So
mm-mm.
it isn't comfortable. It isn't a comfortable feeling. It isn't something you talk about, and there is. I only have the language in the last, couple of decades about having shame behind that
Yeah.
and feeling, oh, I don't want to tell, like you said, I don't want people to have this label, I'm a bad girl, and, whatever it was that comes with that. So I get the not wanting to have the label, but understanding that how does someone your age go, yeah, how do you have that mindset, the resilience to say, no, I'm not going with that. I'm not going with this. So, how do you have that? What do you tell yourself?
I tell myself I wasn't always a foster child, so that was my way of telling myself. Um, a backstory a little bit. So when I was my foster mother, I had an experience in the home, and she had a friend, it was a really good friend of hers, and she was at the home a lot of times, a lot of nights she'll stay. And one day, particular, my foster mom was teaching me how to make a dish. To teach me how to make saltfish. I loved her saltfish. I'm like, teach me how to make it. And I left the pot and I went upstairs, came back down, and her friend was in the pot. And I said, oh, like, don't touch that, like I'm cooking, I was actually really excited to make the dish. And she's like, you don't tell me what to do in my friend's house. And it became like a big,
Oh,
a disagreement. And she said to me, um, I have my children at home. You are not at your home because your parents don't want you. And that
oh,
stuck with me. And like, I remember like this, from that, it was remembering I'm not going to be in foster care forever.
yeah.
And
But that moment all these moments are great moments. I want to
yeah,
know how, actually, when she said that, what you felt. I mean, just hearing you say that, makes me feel
it,
like I got kicked.
yeah, it was, and the feeling the worst part was my foster mom never stood up for me. She just kind of told her to leave, but she never, like,
Yeah.
it got to me, and I was just like, I guess, like, as a young girl, from where I am now, like, looking back, it was just
Yes.
thinking I'm not good enough, I'm not wanted, and like that kind of, like, I guess, it kind of not justified, reassured me that everything I was thinking back then was correct. Like, she's right.
Hmm.
My parents, I'm not in my home with my parents, and my parents don't want me. They're not calling me, and like, so in that moment, yeah, it was very
So
hurtful.
yeah, so you're kind of at that point. It's like a validation of your aloneness or um,
Insecurities and my place to
insecurities.
belong and feeling like I
Yeah, the
belong
belongingness. Yes.
and feeling like I really don't belong. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I feel like me just remembering that I wasn't always going to be in foster care and that I needed, and they make it seem, it is hard. It is hard, but
Hmm.
there's just these very sad stories. I didn't want to be another sad story. I didn't
Right.
want to be, and I just told myself, I'm like, that's not it. Like, I wanted to be this, I wanted to be a woman in business. I want to be this, all these dreams I had before, and like I said, my experience is unique. I didn't go into care. My friend, she was in care from when she was like a baby. And like, that's
Yes.
like, I really felt that because I said, wow, like, it's a sense of like loss and a sense of like,
Yes, it is.
it makes you really sympathetic to be like, wow, like, I'm grateful, but I'm blessed that like I went at such an age where I had these morals and ethics and like structure from home. So when I went into
Hmm.
care, they kind of seem like, oh, you're shining, you're doing so great. But it's like these children would have too if they would have had the same experience. If they would
Hmm.
have been told, like, a lot of times just staying
You're
up with her.
worthy.
Yeah. And being like, my grandmother was up to this day. She's amazing. Like she calls and she made sure like we had, that love and we were able to be children and we were able to just explore.
Hmm.
And if,
Hmm.
I think a sense when I came into care, it was, you have to respect this person. They're not your parents, so they can't tell you what to do. So I didn't really take them seriously because I'm like, you can't tell me what to do, then I could, But I was a little too scared to rebel in care. Where I'm watching my foster siblings rebel, and I was just like, I thought it was interesting. I'm like, it was so different, it was
So
very
you
unique
kept that
experience.
structure. Yeah, you
Yeah,
kept
I
that
kept this.
structure.
Yes, up to
The
this day,
structure.
the structure, the respect, and
Yes.
yeah. But the ones I did find my voice in care. I did find my
And you
voice.
found, I love
My
that you
voice. Yeah.
found your voice in care. So some of those scars, I mean, I ask people like, we all have scars, whether you're in care, not in care. What would you say? I mean, you don't have to share this, but what would you say was the most the scar that kind of lasted the longest, or maybe still is there, that sometimes pops up, because scars diminish over years
Mhm.
and they look different. Or is there anything like that for you? Do you have a scar that you're still diminishing?
A scar that I'm still diminished is my mental health. I think that is a scar that I've a lot of times put band-aids on. I wearing clothing to cover it up. And
Is that due to being in care, or that's something that you?
I think it's due to being in care because I felt like going into care, I felt like these people are here to protect me. And I felt like a lot of times I wasn't protected and a lot of resources are thrown at you and do this, do this, do this. But it's like, there's nobody I didn't feel like I was anyone I could have talked to. I think if
Right.
you say the wrong
I
thing,
get
now
that.
it's
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
you're playing with your mind like, okay, like I said, like I didn't feel loved. There was no
Hmm.
hugs. There
I
was
get that. Yeah.
no you're beautiful. There's no love
Hmm.
being poured into me. And like, yes, someone could be doing good in school, but
Yes.
it's that's like that was just me trying to work hard so I'm not labeled as somebody I didn't want to be labeled as. And yeah,
Yeah. So
I felt like
you develop that
I uh
I have to do it on my own.
I up to
I
this
have
day
to
I'm
do.
still fighting with that. Like I'm very independent. I don't need
Yes.
nobody. And a lot of that, like I felt like I've done therapy before. I'm looking to get back into therapy. And I feel like the first time I went to therapy, I felt like I didn't realize how much triggers I had and how much of
Yeah.
those scars are now coming up into like my adult life. And I'm like,
Yes.
shoot, where did you come from? You know? And like,
Right, right. We
and
all
I
say
feel like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like it's not just you start and you're like, after 2 years, okay, you're healed and
It's
everything's
it's
perfect.
done.
It's
It's all
yeah,
done
yeah. Let
now.
me just wash my hands and move on. Like I can, and it's
Yeah.
that's very tough. And I feel like I didn't get to address a lot of this stuff. So now I'm even like on the calls and like I'm, doing therapy and I'm able to like I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, just seeing a lot of scars of people coming in and out of my life. The foster sisters I had. At one time I had three other, but then another time there's people staying on respite and they're there for like 2 months and they're there for, long
Yes,
periods of
yes.
time and then they leave. And I'm watching
No
children just come.
attachment, there's no
You
groundedness.
can't, yeah,
You
you
just
can't.
can't. Yeah, it's
You can't
very
say it's
difficult.
like how do you? And it's like we were moving and it's like they're moving from this home to this home. It's like it was it's hard to get attached. And when you meet somebody, they used to do like a lot of the Children's Day Society used to do a lot of events, and it was you meet people and you think you connect with them, and you never see them again. And that was very
Hmm.
hard for me. I think I'm still dealing with that. I'm not trying to get too close to people. So you never know when
Yes.
someone's gonna leave. So I feel
But I
like,
love that you're aware of all this. You're
yeah,
aware of all this. Oh, I'm not allowing people to get too close. I've got this wall, and I
hmm,
want to change. I'm guessing that's what you're doing because you're going to therapy to kind of break
yeah,
that down. And usually, I know for me, it was because I had a child, and I said I didn't want to bring all of that, all of that
yeah,
stuff into his life. Do the best that I can. It's not that I didn't bring stuff, but
for sure.
you want to do the best that you can now that for this purpose, for this, and you have children. I'm not sure.
Children, two girls, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And when my 3-year-old now, when I was pregnant with her, that's when I decided to go to therapy to heal
Wow.
that trauma. And like, I didn't want to put all my trauma and the pain, everything. I know I didn't deal with
Yes.
it. I know I had that. Never spoke about it. I just kind of left it. I moved out at 18 and I struggled and I found my way and I kind of just like, I got to go to therapy. I don't want to put all this hurt onto her, and
Right.
that was
How
one of
do
the best
you?
decisions I ever did. I loved it. I loved
Yeah,
it.
I hear people say that. How do you find you're parenting your children differently than, I'm going to say you're probably giving them more hugs.
Oh, yes.
And
Oh, yes.
that is for sure, the hugging
Yeah.
and the loving and telling them, but also, do you do that with yourself?
I'm definitely, I've started. So when it comes to parenting my girls differently, I still like the little, like, structure, like that, like the
Yes,
traditional, like Jamaican, like household,
yes,
certain things.
yes,
Like
yes,
I'm big on respect. We're big on respect
yes,
and just making sure they
yes.
grow up like respecting their elders and
Hmm.
people just in the community around them. A couple things I would say. I'm not, so I do this thing with my daughter when she's upset. I tell her, take deep breaths. I'm like, take deep breaths, take 3 deep breaths, because she's 3. So she'll
Right.
take her 3 deep breaths. So now if I get angry, she'll be like, Mommy, calm down. Take a deep breath.
I love that. But do you hug
So
yourself? Do you hug yourself? Do you,
I I try. There's just certain things I'm pouring back into myself. Certain things I love doing. Like I love getting dressed up and going to dinner, and that's my way of hugging myself. And just sometimes sitting back. I write a lot. So I love to write. So I write
yes.
myself love letters, and I look back on them in like years to come.
Oh,
Yeah, I love that. I write
that,
my girls letters so they can look back and like kind of
oh,
see what the
that's your
time was
book.
like. That's
That's your book, isn't it?
so it's kind of like
Yeah.
sharing, like even when something doesn't happen as great as I wanted to, it's like sharing those stories to look back on. But I'm trying to hug myself more and doing things that I love and becoming the best version of myself. Whether that
Oh,
means
I
like,
love that.
yeah,
So, all right, so we're on the bridge now. We've talked about this part, how the journey becomes. You're on the bridge. How does come into it? Where does that start? With a doll, with what?
yeah. When I was 11, I had this doll and I used to braid her hair with my grandma's
Oh,
extensions. And
oh,
her little synthetic hair, I used to braid my doll's
oh,
hair.
wow.
It'll leave a mess around the house. And it led to doing my grandmother's hair, my sister's hair, and they had different hair textures. So it was like touching their hair and like telling my grandma, let me wash your hair. And, and as I got older, my foster mother never used to, my stepmother never used to do my hair the way I wanted it done. So I used to go in the mirror and I used to have to change it to make it look like how I wanted it to look. And I fell in love with hair, just hairstyling and like people's different textures and like specifically when it comes to black hair and all the different ways you can mold it. And there's no two textures the same. And it's just, I love it. I love like the shaping, the different styles you can do. You can do anything to it and it looks phenomenal every time.
I love that. I'm going to give you my little story about hair. Yeah. I come from the era of hot comb. Where you put that iron onto the gas stove and you hope that your ear doesn't get burnt or your neck doesn't get burnt. And then you straighten that, but you never go in the water because you don't want your hair to turn back. That was the era I came from until we went into finding, putting lye in your hair or whatever it is, the straightening cream. Yeah. And then the 70s came or 60s and it was the Black Power movement and I wore an afro with my dashiki. Yeah. And on top of that, my first experience, my start into show business was with a show called Hair. So that is my journey through hair, and now I've been locked for many, many years. But I love that you appreciate and celebrate black hair texture, and that we should appreciate and celebrate whatever we do with it, whatever you do with it.
And that's the uniqueness. You can do whatever you want, and it's just, it's beautiful. It's rooted into you. It's history, and I love it. I love even with locks. My friend was saying like, I want to lock my hair, but I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, you can do so many styles. I'm like, you could wear one way today, tomorrow you can change it. And none of this is like damaging to your hair. If you decide to take your hair down and switch it into like an updo or, you wear it all down, you can.
Yes,
and
yes.
I love that.
Well, so I'm going to ask you maybe a little controversial thing about hair, because we talk about the extensions, especially black women wearing a lot of extensions, and it's been said, why are we doing all of that? Because I know, are we trying to be Caucasian?
Sure.
And this is something that has been going on even when I was young, when we straightened our hair. Definitely the only people I saw on TV, I wanted to have that hair, and it wasn't black women for sure.
Correct.
So you want to have that bouncy hair. So what do you, I know it's a little bit tough to answer this question, maybe, but what do you feel about that? I mean, I feel that anybody can do whatever they want with their hair, but just how do you have a feeling about that sort of a?
My opinion on that is I feel like in the beginning, starting off, we were oppressed from wearing our natural hair. We got oppressed and we were told you had to wrap it up, you couldn't show it. And it went from us creating maps in our hair from the braids. It was beautiful. Escape routes, mazes, and leading to that is we felt we couldn't just walk out and just share our hair. Our hair was whether it be nappy, kinky, curly, it was not accepted. So we adapted to fit modern times, or the modern times at that time was to be beautiful and what was considered beautiful.
What was considered, yes.
And I think the difference now is we know, or a lot of us, I would say, black women, black men, we know there's strength in our hair, and we know that we're beautiful with our natural hair and our natural textures. But if we want to enhance it with a particular hairstyle to make us, there's certain hairs, if I know I'm going to wear something to a wedding, I may want a particular hairstyle compared to if I'm going to, let's just say, on vacation. It's just, I feel like we have fell in love with our hair again. And we have fell in love with just the uniqueness and I don't feel like it's a bad thing that we want to switch up our hair. Why not? I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
why not? It looks good, and if your hair is healthy, I say do it. I say do it.
And I was thinking, well, when we had our initial interview, someone mentioned that doing hair is intimate.
It is.
Yeah. Do you feel that way about it?
I do, and that's why I don't let just everyone touch my hair because I feel like people's energy definitely, whether it be people's energy, they're having a good day, they're having a bad day, people's
Yeah.
intentions are.
Yes.
I remember growing up and I had a friend, and that friend was like coolie, so they're from, so we call that like they're Jamaican, we're West Indian. They're from the West Indies, but they have they have Indian heritage.
They
And I
call
remember,
the this is the good hair, bad hair thing.
yes. And I remember like them saying, like, I remember I had a friend and her mom said we couldn't touch her hair because we don't want to take that good hair energy and like kind of grow our hair. She used to say, like, don't make them touch your hair. Like they don't have good energy. Like as if we
Oh
wanted her
wow.
hair. Like, but we were
Yeah,
amazed. Her hair
yeah.
was beautiful, but her mom was like, yeah, don't make her touch. They don't. And it got me thinking. I'm like, wow. Like it was always like, you don't have good hair. This person has good hair.
Yeah.
So I feel like no.
We're okay.
Yeah, I feel like,
We're,
you don't. Yeah, I think
but
we're okay,
that's
and I
just the
feel
journey. That's just a
correct.
journey that we as people of color, other ethnicities go through it, but we as
Yeah,
people of color, that's part of the journey. Uh, all right, so let's talk. Well, and I also want to congratulate you. You are an entrepreneur or
thank you.
fempreneur, however
Yeah.
you fempreneur. But I want to talk a little bit about self-love. Now, I had a clinical psychologist on, and we were talking. The theme was about self-love, and how do you wear that? How do you wear that daily? Self-love. How do you wear that?
I wear self-love daily by choosing to put myself first, choosing to
Hmm.
be selfish, and choosing to put boundaries in place. And once I have those
Yes.
boundaries in place, it's to I I used to always feel like I had to say yes for everything. If somebody liked me, I had to be like, yes, I like you too. If my friends want to go somewhere, yes, I want to go too. Like I had to be
Hmm.
accepted. And once I found that I don't have to be accepted by anybody, I can have standards and I can, that's me loving myself and taking care of
Hmm.
myself, that I don't have to be everywhere. I don't have to be in every room. I just have to show up as my best self and be authentically me. And I feel like loving
Right.
myself, just being pouring into myself in different areas, whether it be spiritually, emotionally, I'm practicing on financially loving myself. And
Now, did forgiveness play, or does forgiveness play a role in how you've become so resilient and strong in working towards your best self? Did
yes, I feel like for a lot of years, I was hindering like this sense of this happened to me. Why did this happen to me? And once I accepted, like, you know what, this happened, but it doesn't mean that's my outcome. I was in foster care, but it doesn't mean I have to be labeled as a child who's damaged and a child who's broken. And those are not necessarily bad things. It's not bad
no?
things because it's a journey and it's beautiful and you need to break to get put back together and healed and fixed. And I'm still going through that journey and it's a beautiful journey
Yes.
because I'm learning myself and I'm undoing those broken bad habits
Yes.
and those things I was taught, and I'm learning new skills and new habits to like
New skills, new
become my
habits.
best self. And
And you're
it's a beautiful
making a
journey.
choice to
Correct.
do that. We
And when
have
you,
to
yeah,
understand we make the choice. We cannot change the past,
correct.
but we can make the choice to, whether it's 1% better for ourselves, to live
Hmm.
our best lives. Because unless we become selfish or become self-loved or self-like, make the choice
Correct.
to just be our better selves, because
Yeah.
it's better for our relationships when we go out in the
Yeah.
world, whatever it is. The world, there's a great world out there, and full of possibilities. full of possibilities. So now I want to ask you if you, I like to, I don't know why I like this question, but I do. If you had all the money you needed to not worry about anything, what would you do?
On my new venture, my new career path, I would write. I write right now. I wrote my first children's book, so I'm in the process of getting it published. So I'm gonna self-publish it. But
Oh, yes.
I will write and publish books, and I will share my stories, and I'll speak to other young people and share their stories in books where they can understand.
So that's where you feel your not your next step, because you're already in that journey as an
Yeah,
author.
yeah,
Wow, fempreneur, author,
yeah. So
parent.
that'll be yeah. And writing stories about my children and like their experiences, and just my experiences, like raising them and just making it fun. Like yeah.
Will you tell your children about your, I mean, it'll be in the book, but as they get older, will you say to them, this is my experience? You don't have to tell them in detail, but is that something you're going to share with them? Like when they become teenagers and they go, which is likely that
Yeah.
teenagers do teenage stuff, and that's
Yeah.
what we kind of have to do in
Yeah.
order to
Yeah, for
to
sure.
grow. Hopefully we don't get so far out that we, it's difficult to come back, but you will tell them about your journey, I guess.
Yes, I would. I will share. I feel like with your earlier question, I've forgiven myself a lot, and I've forgiven those around me, and I feel like that's healed me a lot.
Yeah.
To not feel like I'm a burden or I'm holding on to this baggage. So I will share my story with them, let them know like you go through things in life. We all do, and it's about how
Yes.
you persevere. And something that always makes me feel, or always gets me to feel better, is remembering I've been in a situation where I thought I wasn't going to make it before. Being in situations where I thought this is the end, I don't want to go on, or, this is the worst thing
Yes.
that could happen to me. And I've always made it through every single one. And that
Wow.
just brings me so much joy. And I'm just like, why am I worried? And, and I go through therapy as well. It was always like, if it's something negative, I'm like, shoot, like I'm not going to make it on time. But what's the positive
Yes.
stuff? Maybe I wasn't supposed
Yes.
to make it on time. And, so that just always brings me so much joy knowing tomorrow's going to be okay. Like
Learning to
it's going to be
pivot,
okay.
always
Yeah.
learning to
And you're
pivot.
not stuck. Yeah. You're
And
not
you're
stuck in
not
a
stuck. And
situation.
and
You're
yes,
not stuck.
you might fall, you might fail, but you get up and you do it again. Do it better this time, or maybe
Yeah.
understand what didn't work.
Correct.
But
And
give
holding
yourself
yourself
some
accountable.
grace.
Yes. Give
Holding
yourself
yourself
grace.
account.
But it's important to hold ourselves accountable because I
Yes,
felt like I found myself falling into the same routines again. I'm like, why am I here again six
yes,
months later? And it's like, wait, I didn't learn what I was supposed to learn from that.
yeah.
And like
That's
what,
right.
and I do a lot of lists of like pros and cons. And I'm like, gotta make a list of the pros and here's a list of the cons. And like really holding yourself accountable to those lists
Yes.
and your intuition and what you're feeling. Like, this is not right. I should not be doing it. And that can come into like all plays of life. But I feel like, yes, I will share with them. But as I share with them is remembering to like giving myself grace that I am not a victim and I do not need to make it.
That's it. You are
Yeah.
not a victim.
Yeah. I don't need to make my story I remember sharing my stories before and it was always people feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm like, I'm not, because I did so much wonderful things. And if I didn't go through those experiences, I wouldn't be here today. And I wouldn't be the person I am, right? So I'm
Yes.
like, yeah,
Yeah, don't be a prisoner of the past. Don't be a
correct.
slave to the past, because
Yeah.
it's. So I want to, before we go, here's a quote. I just heard this quote recently. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody else, and it was apparently from Thoreau. It's a quote by Thoreau. We spend our whole lives fishing until we realize that it wasn't fish we were after. So I guess what is I know you want to thank children's aides, definitely, because you said they were a great supporter and helped you through post-secondary and
Correct.
doing all that, and that's important. And for youth who are coming out of this to know there are possibilities. This is just what's happening at that moment is what's happening at that moment.
Correct. It is not
That
the rest of your life.
it
It is
is
not.
not the rest of your life, and you can go on to be a fempreneur, an entrepreneur, a malepreneur, whatever.
Whatever.
Be the best. Make those choices to be the best, and find a community. Find someone to share that with. And I thank you for sharing your story, because for those, and there's lots of us out there who need to hear story, the A to B sort of transformations, as we call them, but just the growth in the past. It's not easy, but you're doing it. It's not easy it's not easy to be the best that we can be, but you have to want that. You have to desire that. So I am grateful. Do you have anything you'd like to close with? A closing.
A closing is, I will say, I'll repeat, is for anybody out there who's going through something, the children, and I think sometimes I even look back to myself and just thinking what I would have loved to hear, and remembering that you are somebody, you are loved, and you are meant to be here. And I'm so grateful that you are here, and whatever that you're currently going through, remember that there will be many times like this. There will also be many great times, and you just have to choose to wake up every morning and be the best version of yourself. And I hope that you stay strong, and I hope that you reach out and you get the resources that you may need, and you continue to just use your voice and fill up the rooms, take up space, and do not dim your light for anybody.
That's what you telling your younger self. You do understand that.
Yes, and me telling, take up, but also sharing with this youth who may be going through a difficult time and feeling like you won't get through it. I've been there many, many days, many, many nights, and you will get to where you want to get to. And the life I'm living now, I've manifested it in so many ways, and I'm so thankful. And literally dreaming of the life you want and showing up every day as the person you see yourself as. And that has been that has led to a lot of success for me, is showing up. I want this. What does that person look like? Who has it? And I show up as that person that I see myself as. And I just want you to know you're in it right now, but it is not the end, and it gets better.
I couldn't have said it any better.
And thank you, Sharon, so much for a platform like this, because this would have been helpful to hear from people who've been through it, and to feel like you're in a room and to feel like you're the only one that stands out, and not in the best ways. And to know, it would have been nice to hear, other people share their stories. I felt like I was alone. I felt like I was in a house with so much people, but I felt like I was the only one there.
Yes.
So
I wish I had some place. So I thank you for saying that, Sheniquah. I really appreciate your time and your energy, and the future is bright for you, as you know, because you're creating the future. I don't know if you left us a place where did you want people to reach out to you for hair, or you just
currently not at the moment, and it's only because
that's okay.
So it's just currently not at the moment, but I am happy, and I'm happy. Yeah.
That's what we want to hear. That's great. You are happy. That is enough. You are enough. You are lovable. You are beautiful. You are worthy, and we thank you for your voice.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. So if you enjoyed this episode, I would really love to hear from you. Email me at info@outraisedvoices.com or Sharon Lee Williams @outraisedvoices.com. Who knows? On a future episode, you could be the CEO. Remember, your voice matters.